don't set a boundary that you won't or can't follow through on. And most of the time, when those kind of boundaries, unrealistic boundaries, are set, honestly, they're not necessarily boundaries. They're usually more like threats. That's what we call them. But those are usually formed out of high emotion or just a loss of what to do. So you're just kind of like stabbing in the dark at maybe this will work, maybe we'll hit it with this. And uh, those kind of undermine the whole thing because it sets a precedent of we have a big bark but no bite. We have anger and emotions, but we don't have follow through. I was actually talking with a family not too long ago, and this is a good example. Just popped in my head. Their son was massively addicted to screens and the internet and social media, the phone and games and any kind of stimulation. And it's a common story I've heard. We're getting the wave of like high schoolers and kids that went through COVID and they spent a year or more just on way too many devices and not socializing in real life. And I'm seeing a lot of that generation, the intensity of their internet screen addiction is extreme. I mean, it's just like crack to them or any substance. It's the first thing when they feel discomfort, the first thing when they're feeling any kind of anxiety or tension around anything. It's just, let me look at the screen. Let me look at the screen. Let me look at the screen. And this young man and this family I was talking with this young man, that was very much the case. He just could not stay away from his phone. I was having a conversation with him face to face, and he couldn't not stop looking at his phone, even when you're pointing it out, when you're trying to redirect him, point out the behavior. He could not look at his phone. So the parents, they made a boundary, and it wasn't necessarily bad, but it was extreme from where they were. They just took away every device. They turned off the Wi-Fi. They did all of that, and okay, you don't get any of this until you get a job. And like I said, the premise of it was fine. Get a job, go to school. They had some other things. The premise of it was fine, right? This is what you're using to avoid. We're going to take it away, and go do this, then we can bring it back on. Their son went into complete meltdown because he had no coping mechanisms other than the internet and the screen and the devices. So he just switched from rage to depression and hopelessness and being extremely stuck. The parents could not handle him suffering like that, and they worried about it, and they very quickly gave back in. They just like by the next day, the next time I talked to him, like, oh, I got my screens later that night. I got all my stuff back later that night. And like, why'd that happen, right? Because it hadn't been thought through, and then that cycle was happening over and over and over. So the boundary and the goal was set too quick, too hard, too much. There wasn't discussion, there wasn't connection around it, and the parents didn't have the tolerance to deal with their son and his distress when he didn't have his addiction.